Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm excited to talk about marriage and parenting. We have an expert, Sami Packard, and she is a couples coach helping tired parents reclaim their sanity and joy. Drawing from her background in change consulting and design thinking, she supports couples in creating the life they both crave through self-compassion and more connected rhythms at home. With that, let's welcome Sami.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for our combo.
Yes. Okay. So as we were getting ready to start recording, I said, I am so excited about this conversation because it is so applicable to my life. Raising 4 children. It is hard in a couplehood to do this child rearing thing.
Yes, it is. It certainly is. And modern life doesn't make it any easier for you.
Yes. But we have amazing people like you who work specifically with couples to help us through, any challenges, but also parenting is, I'm sure, one of the challenges that comes to your office frequently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So tell us, why do you think parenting, like when a couple goes into, they get married and everything is great, and it all seems well, then we add children in, and then tension kind of shows up, or like it can disrupt relationships. Why does that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a really foundational question. And my initial answer to that is that the blueprints we've inherited for family life just no longer meet the moment. Things around religion or the values we inherited from our families, a lot of us are choosing to no longer pursue. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're having to come up with a roadmap ourselves. And what I find is a lot of conflict is happening because if you kind of go underneath the hood and see what's happening, is couples are coming at it from different operating systems.
Sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And yeah, you have your different life experiences, right? The way that you were raised versus the way that your spouse was raised. And those things can be sometimes in conflict.
Yeah, and I'd be curious what it's like for you and your husband, but out here in California, we have more intercultural marriages than ever. And by intercultural, I mean Northern California and Southern California, or you name it. We
Sure.
used to all come from small towns and marry the people next door. But now people are traveling, they're mobile, they're moving for work. And so that means they're
Sure.
bringing a whole new set of values that may or may not align with the
Mhm.
person they ended up with.
Yeah. Well, and I think, in Kansas City, I think people are definitely more mobile, right? Like different, like people marrying people from like different parts of town, which maybe isn't so different. But then lots of people come into Kansas City for different jobs and then
Mhm.
meet people that way. But even like my husband and I didn't grow up that far apart. He grew up in Missouri, about 45 minutes away from where I grew up in Kansas City. And it's just like, even that, like I remember when he was like, I'm not moving to Kansas, like this is God's country, I'm staying out here, like, and he was kind of teasing, but
Okay.
then he like came to Kansas City, or like where I lived, and he was like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff out here, there's so much more to do. And I was like, yeah, you should definitely move out here. And he was like, yes, I will. But I think we only know what we know, right? Like
Mhm.
we don't know anything beyond obviously what we know, but like what our parents showed us and demonstrated of like, how do you handle kids who don't follow the rules, or how do you handle what we do on Sundays? How do you handle the like system of the household? Who's in charge? Who does meal things? Who does grocery shopping? Just like all of the things that make a house work. It's like when you don't have kids, I don't know, for some reason it's just so much easier because it's just 2 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
No,
you
once you have kids, it just compounds the issue, and
yes,
it reveals new aspects of your partner that you couldn't have ever known about.
yes.
You know, my husband, I grew up in San Francisco. He grew up in Berkeley. That is literally just one bridge apart.
Mhm.
And, you know, part of what drew me to him is that we were very culturally similar, but, you know, we're still different households. We're still different people. I come from divorced parents too. He comes from, you know, parents that have been married for 50 years. And so any difference, it's gonna cause conflict.
Yeah, yeah, which is beautiful and hard.
Mhm. Well said.
Right? The mixing, like I find so much value in my husband has a very diverse cultural background. Like his family, his grandparents on his dad's side were from Iraq and Egypt. And then his dad grew up in India. And then he moved to the United States to work for NASA, which is funny. He's a rocket scientist and I still laugh about that. Like it's crazy. I'm like that, like, whoa, okay, that's so crazy. But and so then his mom like has totally different background and she grew up in like the mountains of North Carolina and her family is more Italian based and several other things. But like, I mean, just like such a cultural, like just a lot of different things. And so listening to even their conflicts that they had parenting their kids and how they worked through it or didn't work through it. And we were like, both of us were like, okay, we're going to do this better. We're going to do parenting like where we're working together, but it's so hard because I think sometimes we can end up working against each other, even though we like want to be on the same team. Do you find that in your practice?
Yeah, and the coach in me just wants to learn more and hear, you know, what's going on for you. And happy to go into that, whatever you're comfortable sharing. But I think you're touching on some really important stuff. And it's probably because I'm in San Francisco, you know, the tech hub of our country. But a lot of times I think about that upbringing and the cultures that we all come from as kind of the
Mhm.
coding that we come into this world
Sure.
with, and we're kind of each these really complex computers and machines, and so literally baked into our DNA, and then whatever we're raised with,
Hmm.
that is how we're showing up in the world. And like our fingerprints, we're each beautiful little snowflakes, so no two people are going to be exactly the same,
Sure.
and it's that difference that is, as you said, is beautiful and challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that I mean, sometimes when I've seen parents in my practice, because I primarily see children and adolescents, um, but then I do parenting work too. Like sometimes they will say like the other person is like doing this on purpose. Like I feel undermined. Like they're siding with the kids or making me the bad guy, or we play this good cop bad cop. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, and I'm sure you get such a beautiful deep look into that as well. And what I find is in moments of conflict, we have one of two reactions. Something's wrong with you, or
Hmm.
something's wrong with me.
Mm,
And when we're coming from that place, there's a whole suite of undermining that we do because
hmm.
ultimately we're in pain.
Sure.
And, you know, pain is the puppetry, the invisible puppetry of our lives. And
Hmm.
so we are often reacting as a way to get rid of that pain.
Sure.
Maybe someone's feeling guilty and they can't acknowledge that within themselves. And so to rid themselves of the pain, they're going to blame their partner. They're going to make
Mhm.
their partner look like the bad guy. And so, absolutely, it's heartbreaking that we have those situations, and we're all human. We all do it.
Sure.
Um, and I know you were going to ask about self compassion, but that's at the root. What that means to me is in those moments, taking a deep breath and recognizing what is happening within us.
Mhm.
You know, and I call it like the ninja level of self awareness, right? Like to be able to name and see your emotion in real time and stop yourself from reacting in real time. Most people can't do that. That is like ninja level.
Yeah.
At the very least, we can just pause, stay quiet, and not say anything at all. But, it's a really long practice and working to even see what is happening within us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was listening to, have you heard the book, The Next Conversation?
No.
Fisher. It is a book about conflict resolution. And I loved this book. And one of the things he talked about is letting your breath be your first word.
Yes, I love that. That's so good. Yep.
Yes.
That is what I teach. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think often we haven't thought, we're just reacting. Right. And like you said, it's either something's wrong with you or something's wrong with me. Well, I don't want anything to be wrong with me. So I want it to be something's wrong with you, because then I get to rid that feeling. But the truth is, behind every conflict is there's two parts with two different opinions, right? Like that is the truth. Otherwise you don't have conflict. If we both think the same thing, then there is no conflict to be had. So it's just a function of, I really don't want my partner to be wrong. I don't really want to be wrong. Right. But it's like about that softness of like, how do we get to the middle of that part? But that's also, that's self-compassion to be like, it would be okay if I was wrong. It would be okay if they were wrong. It would be okay if nobody was wrong necessarily, and we're just figuring it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's that third option.
We're not trained how to do that.
Exactly. Nope. And that sense that every person's coding, DNA, worldview is valid.
Yeah. Because it is.
Yeah. For that person.
Yes.
I like to think of every person as like literally their own universe, right? Like they are an entire world of an experience, and we're each our own universe.
Sure.
And for that person, their view is valid.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's going to be the most helpful or the most constructive.
Sure.
But it is valid for who they are.
Mm-hmm. And what they're seeing, right? Like, and I think if you come at somebody and if you feel something different and they feel attacked, it's very hard to resolve the issue.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to dig in more, just like we would dig in more. If somebody is like saying, your way sucks. Like, this is the worst way. You're doing this wrong. Like, I'm going to be like, oh, you want to fight? That's what I heard.
Oh, I love that your instinct is to fight. Mine is to just hide. I'm like, oh my God, I'm covered in so much shame. Don't look at me.
Well, and then that just shows the coding, right? Of like how we're so different. And I think in every situation, it's not that, but it's like, you want to say I'm wrong? Like, I'm going to prove you. I have a little bit of that, oppositional in me of like, I'm like, no, let's do this my way. But I am learning the value of like, my husband brings so much calmness to our home. Of like, he is just so easygoing, and like his job is he is the deputy chief of police in the area that we live. And so like, he knows how to have a very big situation, stay calm. And I'm like, run the other way, go, get out of here. And he's like, run towards the fire, run towards the danger. I'm like, what is wrong with you? But I really don't think that. I am so thankful for him.
Yeah.
And all the other first responders. But like, I think, we all just have this different way of being. And so it's like it's not just the way you're raised. It's not just your personality. It's like all these little tiny pieces about how we are. These tiny little experiences or these giant experiences. And they tell us about what's safe in the world and what's unsafe in the world, and where we can speak our voice or where we have to stay quiet versus like choosing to stay quiet, right? Like we can't speak or we have to fight, or like no one will listen unless we raise our voice.
Yeah. Well, also just thank you to your husband for his service.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
We need all the frontline folks we can to keep ourselves safe. And I love that you're talking about safety, because it does come at different levels. And Something else I think a lot about is, what's happening within the home, but also
Mhm.
like the culture that we're living in.
Sure.
And I'm not sure what it's like in Kansas City, but here in San Francisco, it is not built for family life.
Mm-hmm.
It is built for hustle culture. Two people basically always have to work. They
Mm-hmm.
grind you so that you're working 50 plus hours. And so, yeah, when you come home and you have kids, mouths to feed,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be really hard and really exhausting. And no one is at their best in those moments.
Sure.
And so, something else that just breaks my heart is that it is the system that we're
Mm-hmm.
operating in that is pretty uniquely American, um, that I think just makes it even harder for modern families.
Sure. Well, and I was having a conversation. I do all my podcast recordings, sorry guys, on one day because I can't do them multiple days. It helps me to just put it into a succinct thing. But I was talking to someone else earlier today, and she was talking about how especially Western culture, it does not really love kids. Like it's not set up for kids, right? Where it's like kids should be seen but not heard. And I was like, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it's like, I mean, yeah, we have parks and like things, but like there's so much that is like not kid friendly, or like if they are there, they should not be disruptive. And
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly all put on the parents.
mhm,
And for many of us, that weight is most often felt by the moms and
sure.
kind of the invisible standard that moms carry. And when things go wrong, it's still the parents' fault.
Mhm,
And so that cycle of blame, just puts a lot of pressure. Also there's the trend of this intensive parenting that doesn't make our lives any easier too, combined with gentle parenting. So it's like we're supposed to be our kids' main companion,
mhm,
but also kind of preserve their sense of self and help them avoid conflict when really conflict can be healthy and a big
sure.
part of their becoming a full person.
Mhm.
And so it's just the sandwich for us that we don't have support and yet we have more and more expectations.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's supposed to be this way. I think we're supposed to be doing it in conjunction with other people to not feel so isolated. And I'm not sure why exactly that happens, but we definitely need other people. Like, I think everybody is also afraid, like thinking about this couplehood part of like, if you have a conflict with your partner, that it is like that is terrible. Like, but like everybody's had a fight with their partner. Like if you love somebody, you're gonna have conflict.
Right.
I think
Right.
not because you love them, but because like you care enough to stay around to have the argument.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well said. And you mentioned the community part, and that is another thing that I see is so critical. I ran a parents group not too long ago, and one of the number one things people were coming to the group with is they're lonely.
Hmm.
And we know that there's a loneliness epidemic for everyone, and especially parents. And so that's often what I encourage couples to do too is be a villager.
Hmm.
I just had in my home 30 people, 15 of whom were little babies and 15 parents. And I'm doing monthly happy hours for our neighborhood parents now.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to be a villager. I'm trying to figure it out alongside everybody.
Yeah. Which I think is so important because I mean, I think the truth is that if somebody asked most people for help and it was a reciprocal kind of thing, then everybody wants to participate in that. I mean, even I would even help somebody even if I knew it wouldn't be reciprocal. Like if my neighbor is like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I need help taking the kids to school," and they literally go to our school, and maybe I would never, she would never ever take my kids to school. That's fine. Like I'm already
Mm.
going there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like having, my four kids. Well, I would only have three because one goes to a different school.
Yeah.
So having three plus her two would be totally fine.
Mhm.
Like that would
Yeah.
be no hardship for me.
Well, and what's so interesting, I don't know about for you, for me, it is actually difficult asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in this situation a few weeks ago. My husband was going to be gone with the car, and we have one car. And I was like, I don't want to ride the bike at night. That's just not
Mm-hmm.
safe. And I was thinking about just getting an Uber and getting them. And my husband was like, hey, I want to give you a challenge. I was like, okay. I said, I dare you to ask another parent to pick up our kids. And honestly, I was very uncomfortable with the thought. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so I have few different parent communities I'm in, but I play soccer with a group of dads actually every Wednesday. And so I
Mm-hmm.
went onto the dad's WhatsApp and I was like, can anyone pick up my kids? And one of the dad immediately was like, yep, got him. And then it just snowballed into this like lovely evening
Yeah.
where it turned out it was on Wednesday. So we were playing soccer. So I was like, oh, hey, like, since you're going to be there, do you want to stay for dinner? And so next thing we know, his whole family, 2 kids, wife, we're all having dinner together. And then it became this logistical game of like, well, how does his family get home? Because we only have one car still. And so then I was like, oh, I'm going to text this other neighbor who's going to soccer to see if he can pick us up. And so it was just this whole complicated thing. And it was definitely more work. And it was uncomfortable, but it
Yeah.
was really, really sweet and really special.
Yes. And our kids are watching us to see us
Mm.
problem solve in those moments of like how things go. I think it helps our kids to become more resilient and better problem solvers when they get to watch us be uncomfortable and like figure things out.
Yeah, yeah. But I think most of us, my husband hadn't pushed me, he's like very community oriented, and I'm like a close follower, but a little bit more
Yeah.
behind. Um, if he hadn't pushed me, I think I would have just done the easy way and like gotten an Uber.
Yeah. Totally. I am learning and have been learning for like the past 4.5, almost 5 years about how to ask for help.
Oh, good for
And
you.
that is because about 5 years ago, my mom died. And so then she was our main source of support. And so then it was like, okay, wait, if I can't call her for help, then
Mhm.
who am I going to call? And it was like a blessing in the sadness, right? Of like, I had to learn how to do it. And then I learned, oh my gosh, like all these people want to help.
Mm.
And
That's so
so,
beautiful.
yes,
Yeah.
historically, if you would have asked me like 6 years ago, how good are you at asking for help? I would have been like, terrible, terrible. I can do everything on my own. The truth is, I could, but not maybe to my best ability. But like also, it robs people of the opportunity to show us how important we are to them.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful story. And I'm sorry about your mom's passing.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it's sad. And also good has come from that. So
Yeah.
I would take her back in a heartbeat, but it's
Yeah.
so good that I learned how to do that like earlier. I think asking for help, like the more we use the muscle, the easier it gets. Now I can just be like,
Yeah.
hey, are you going to Girl Scouts? And can this kid grab a ride? Yes. Okay, great. Like
Nice. Yeah.
easier. And it's just a skill that you're building.
Yep. Wonderful. Exactly. And I think that's so interesting in the context of coupledom is that we can't just rely on our partners,
Mm-hmm.
right? Both for the mental load and everything that's happening in our home, but also for the companionship.
Sure.
I have a lot of people, especially women, who are like, I want to feel more seen, I want to feel more connected. And it's a beautiful aspiration to have that come from your partner,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to just come from your partner. I find
Sure.
my girlfriends are the ones who are the best companions, who can witness me and help me
Mm-hmm.
feel seen and help me grow in that way. And so just having that community
Mm-hmm.
alleviates pressure from the couple.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing and good to think about because I think oftentimes we do feel like it has to come from our partner, but like that is
Yeah.
maybe an unrealistic goal.
It's a very new expectation. I mean, modern marriage is very recent. I mean, most of marriage has been an economic arrangement, right? Like, I'm a farmer, you've got good supplies, let's
Mhm.
combine and
Mm-hmm.
kids are going to help us tend the farm and grow
Yeah.
our business. This whole bit of two partners fulfilling every need is a new phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
and one in which, I think there is an emotional connection that we are all looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But we also need to just understand the limitations of what it is to live alongside another person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and probably the lack of community too, right? Like, I think whichever came first, not sure,
Yeah.
but like that lack of community. And then it's like, well, then this is the person I have. Like, this is my
Right.
consistent. And so
Right.
I have to lean everything on them, which would be just too much to
Yeah.
be any one person's everything, I think.
Yeah. I know that there were some important shifts in like the 1950s. That's kind of when suburbs started emerging and the nuclear household became more of an emphasis. And
Yeah.
so the more apart we are, the
Sure.
more insular we're looking. And so that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of when those expectations changed.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Totally. Okay, so talk to me about like, okay, so I know that this isn't what all couples struggle with, but like sometimes when it's about parenting, it might be about around discipline or routines or expectations for their kids. If they really want to stop arguing and want to like create real change, what advice do you have around that?
Yeah, I would say start with your values. Many couples don't stop and pause and say, what do we actually care about
Mm-hmm.
for our children and the lives that we're building?
Yeah.
And so they tend to be operating off of different rules.
Yes.
And so, education might be a top priority for one, and artistic talent could be a priority for another. And so you're going to be parenting very differently because of that.
Sure.
And so one of the first things I have my couples do is identify what their values are, both
Mm-hmm.
individually and what are some ones that they can agree to together.
Mm-hmm.
And so things like discipline, getting clear on what is okay or not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like my husband, for example, is much more disciplinary than I am. But I say, okay, I'm going to commit to these three things. These three things I also believe are important. So I will commit to these three things.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else actually don't align with my values, you know? And so just being clear with him about that can help reduce conflict in the home.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some major challenges when I wasn't clear, when I was saying yes to things that I didn't realize weren't aligned with my own values. And so a lot of this work has come from my own journey of being like, oh, I actually need to get clear on what matters to me. And the more clear I am, the more I can communicate that with my partner, and then he's less disappointed.
Sure.
And so it's the same thing with other couples. There tends to often be what's called a fawner, which we have different safety responses now. I'm sure you're familiar. It's like the fight, flight, but they've added freeze, fawn.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see a lot of dynamics where it's often a husband kind of just saying, okay, sweetheart, whatever you want, just tell me what you
Mm-hmm.
want me to do. But it's not actually aligned with what matters most to them. And so their follow through falls short.
Yeah.
And so I help couples bring that to the surface and honor what both people actually care about.
Yeah. Okay, so after you have values, let's say there's just a few that you can agree on. Is it okay for one person to have different values as well? Like if you have these like ones that are kind of in the middle where they're like,
Mhm.
okay, yes, here is where we align. Is it
Mhm.
okay for us to continue to have some values that don't align with our partner?
I think so. Because how can we be completely aligned?
Sure.
I'm trying to remember some examples of ones that were just for us. Oh, like, for example, I'm more spiritual than my
Mhm.
husband is. And so that is one of my values. And so I take the kids to church on Sunday. I read them books. We talk about spirituality. And my husband doesn't.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it. He's okay with me doing things. I'm okay with him not. Um, And so as long as you talk about it, because the next thing we do in conjunction with talking about your values is we talk about the vision for your life.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want your life to look like? What do you want your rhythms to be? What would feel good and soul aligned for both of you?
Yeah.
And as you bring that out, you're making room for both people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yep, one person might want to go to church. The other one might need to go play pickleball every Sunday, and the other person's going to watch the kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So finding the common ground and supporting the differences. Yeah.
I
Makes
think so.
total sense. Um, so we talked a little bit about self-compassion. Can we talk a little bit more about it? Because I think it's something that we could go a little more in depth to. When we think about self-compassion, it's mostly like us just having compassion for ourselves, like giving ourselves grace and space and knowing that we're imperfect and those kind of things. But also we can show compassion. I guess it wouldn't be self-compassion, but compassion for our partner too.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me about like how you feel like these things can show up in relationships and the value of both having compassion for the other person, but also the self-compassion?
Yeah, and starting with the self-compassion, and I worked with a client recently and we gave this part of ourselves a new name, which is the greeter, right? And so in a lot of self-help and previous spiritual language, we used to think things like anger, sadness, disappointment, grief. We used to have this mantra of, oh, just put those over there and transcend, right? Like, let's just remember the joy and the divine and forget all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And in my practice and in what I see is emerging in a lot of communities is a reclaiming of those parts of ourselves and to say,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 we can't just put those, if folks watch Inside Out, you can't just put those in the jail cell in the way
Yeah.
back in the forgotten, repressed place. But can we greet those parts of ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And can we welcome them? And is there a higher self within us that can show those parts love and compassion? And to say, you are welcome here. And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still perfect and beautiful and human. Not despite those things, but because of those things.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
I
that's a
like
different perspective, right? I think most people would be like, okay, like I'm still good even though this. But you're
right.
saying like that part is what makes us so great.
Uh, this might sound odd, but I like to think of us as trees.
Mm-hmm.
And, nature is beautiful because of its imperfections,
Sure.
right? You see the gnarly tree and the knots and the kinks and how it grows and how it moved this way to get a little bit more sunlight or lost its leaves in this way. And boy, I was talking about the West Coast nature and it's just full of awe.
Yeah.
And I see humans the same way. I see us as full of awe and full of beauty because of all of these imperfections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk to me about compassion for your partner.
Yeah. Well, I find when we can recognize our own wholeness, we feel a lot less threatened by
Mm.
other people,
Sure.
right? And so back to this idea that we're all our own universe. Being at home with yourself, you can give another person space to be at home with themselves. And so my husband, for example, he's very different than I am. Some people are like, you two are an odd pair.
Mm-hmm.
and but we give each other space. And I give him space and I say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, these are the things that matter to you. And of course, at first there was conflict and we still have conflict. We're still human. Um, but I just come from a place of like, that is you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm even able to get to a place of like, if he is frustrated with me, I can respond, but I respond from a place of my own wholeness, right? And so there it becomes more of a conscious choice of, how do I want to show up for you? Not because I think I'm broken, not because I'm trying to fix it, but because I recognize your needs, and I'm going to make a choice to inconvenience myself to support your wholeness. So I'm going to tidy the room more than I normally would. I'm going to pack fast, faster than I normally would, and do all these things that I know are important for him that aren't necessarily important for me. And I think that's the most fascinating part is how do we hold our own authentic needs, but also be willing to be uncomfortable enough to show up for our partner and show up for our community.
Yeah, those are good questions to ask. Because I think oftentimes, like you said, fawning is the definition I kind of operate from, is like doing things we don't really want to do because we think it will end faster. Right.
Yes.
So if somebody's upset about something and I'm like, okay, yep, we can just go to that restaurant. I don't care. That's fine. Yep, that's great. Right. But it's like, because I'm like, I just want this to end, versus me being like, you know what? I can be uncomfortable and go to that place, and I can still be like, well, that's not my favorite, but if that's where you'd really like to go, I'm happy to go there.
Yeah.
And if they
Yeah.
say, yes, I still would like to go there, then
Yeah.
it's kind of what you're talking about like being uncomfortable, but like still honoring yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And a really tangible tool that we use, and I've used with some clients too, is just this number scale. Like even in little moments like that of like putting a number to it on a 1 to 10. Like on a 1 to 10, how important is it that we go to this restaurant right now? Oh, I'm at a 8. I really have a craving for this hamburger right now. Can we please go?
Yeah.
And the other partner's like, oh, well, I was like a 2. Like, I don't really want to go, but I see that this is really important to you, and I don't care that much. I'm okay. I'm okay if we go.
Yeah. Yes, I think reading is helpful. It's a different way to communicate something, to like show the importance. Because sometimes I think our words, sometimes we're listening to respond instead of listening to hear. And so then, but like a number is not like you have to respond. You have to like listen to respond, right? Like,
Right.
you have to, like, you don't know what they're going to say. And so, and it's like numbers. So it's not like, there's not like really a fight. I like that idea of putting things on a number to kind of help understand how important or not important it is.
Yeah, because we're all willing to compromise, and someone might genuinely not care, and in which case, by all means, go. I think a lot of partners sometimes don't care, and I know that gets hard too. Especially, I write about this a bit, and it could be interesting to talk about mental load stuff, because I do find that there's usually one partner that cares more about what's happening in the home. And I like to say whoever cares more carries more. And so it is often women and the moms who care more about how things are happening within the home. And the husband either hasn't been socialized to care about those things, or really isn't even in that deep a contact with their own needs. So them taking initiative is sometimes stalled, and that's where we see a lot of the mental load imbalance. I don't know in your community what you're seeing there, but I know for me that's a big topic for folks.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it sounds the same here as it is there. So how do you work through that part?
Yeah. Well, I feel grateful in that the clients that come to me, the husband wants to step up and is open to stepping up. So that's the first part, right? If a husband is resistant and is like, no, then I don't really engage in that part. But it's actually quite interesting and quite fun. So my previous career is in something called human-centered design, which is what designers use to create new products and services for people. And it's a process of like understanding a current situation, gaining insights and then designing solutions based on those insights.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I work with the lower load, the less mental load partner and say, okay, well, one, what do you care about?
Yeah.
But then two, what are systems that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
And so just the other day, I was working with a couple and the husband was stepping up. He's like, I see all this that my wife is carrying. I want to do more. So we go through and we have the spreadsheet on who's doing what. It was like a 38-5 on the tasks scale.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start marking out who's going to start doing what. And then it comes to creating a system for tracking it, because otherwise the wife is like, well, I'm just still going to be nervous about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm asking the husband, how do you keep track of things currently? What works for you? And then he had this like light bulb moment that at work, he has a task log that he uses and he has these alerts to remind him.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, great. How would you feel if we use that for your home? He's like, yeah, okay, I already used that.
Yeah.
And so he's got his calendar alerts going. They have a new, shared calendar. And a big success for us is that the husband reminded the wife of 2 upcoming events that were happening that she had forgotten. So she's just like, what?
That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think men often get a bad rap in these conversations around the mental load, that they're being lazy or not appreciating the wife enough, which might be true.
Sure.
But I also come from a place that they weren't socialized, they weren't taught how to do these things, and their own standards are very different.
Sure.
Right? And so coming from a very non-judgmental place, how can we support them? And then there's also a lot to do on the wife's end too, because the wife is often carrying a lot of anxiety about what happens if you bring the wrong cake knife to the birthday party, the anxiety of what happens if you bring the wrong t-shirt on the field trip or pack the wrong thing at lunch. And so helping that person, one, recognize the identity or recognize the anxiety that's there, unpack the stories, right? Oh, if I get this wrong, my kid is not going to feel cared for. I didn't feel cared for.
Mm-hmm.
Or, someone's going to perceive me a certain way, or the magic's not going to happen. And I want my kid to feel as much magic as I felt. There's so many stories built into this anxiety. And so helping them kind of release those stories and feel less anxious and, give over control to the husband. It's really fascinating work to see. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and it's hard, as my husband is very involved in our lives, and he'll be like, what can I do to help you? And I'll be like, I'll let you know. And then I never, like, and not always, but like there are times where it's like, I should just say, hey, I need help with this. And sometimes I do, but then it's like I have to explain it, and it'll just be faster if I do it myself. But then I like end up like weighing myself down. Like maybe today it would be longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it would be faster, because if I teach him how to do it now, then he knows how to do that thing. So like when I'm upset, if there is like a imbalance, it's more that I've put it there.
I think that's very self-aware of you to notice that. And, if there's a part of you that likes doing it and having that control, it's great to be honest about that.
Sure.
Or if you do really want to hand it off and you're okay with that, then absolutely. I use kind of business speak sometimes. So with clients, I'll say it's an onboarding process.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? You can't just hand over these to-dos and expect them to know all the doctors that they're supposed to call and appointments to make.
Yes.
You gotta guide them. You gotta set them up for success, just as you would a new employee.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I think that's so true. And the more we communicate, the more things seem to be easier. But sometimes I feel like that can be lacking. Okay, so there's something else that I think can be lacking, and that's intimacy. So can we talk about that for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, so I find that sometimes, like in the midst of kids and all the things, right? Like or just stress, right? Like we have stress in our life going on, intimacy, like meaning sex, but also just
connecting, right? That part of just being vulnerable with each other kind of seems to go to the side, right? And so then when parents are stressed or tired or stretched too thin or whatever the thing is, that thing goes to the side. So how important is intimacy, do you think, in relationships? And then how do we prioritize that?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And my disclaimer is I'm not an intimacy expert. There's lots of wonderful people who are, and
Sure.
we should use those skills and talents and specialties. But in my bit of experience around it, it's often the soft cushion that couples come back to, quite literally, the pillow talk. And so having that helps create that soft place for each other and that compassion. And so, sex means different things to different people. For
Right.
some, it means emotional intimacy. For others, it's a physical relief. For some, it is kinky and playful. And so, first off, just knowing what sex means to each couple and what they're hoping to get out of it. I wouldn't assume it's the same thing.
Sure.
I do see some trends around, as we get older, a woman's sex drive tends to drop while a man's continues to keep going. And so, what do you do in those situations? Sometimes it's a hormonal shift for folks. But one thing I find for women is, we have to see ourselves as sexy. We have to feel good about our own bodies. And the more we feel sexy, the more we want to share that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we want to rely on our husbands and our partners to give us that. But it also has to come from ourselves too. So I say for the ladies, you do you. Like, do what feels good for you. And let that be the leadership of what your household needs. And I bet the man will happily follow whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's challenging. Do you have any thoughts on, I hear you saying everybody has different things, but how, let's say it is a priority, but you're just so tired and stretched thin, that you're I would love that if we had an extra hour in the day. But it just seems like we never have time to connect in that way. How do you prioritize that?
Yeah, I think it depends on how you think about it. There's events that you can go to where you're like, I know I'm going to have a good time, but I just can't muster up the energy to do it. But I know I won't regret it.
Yeah.
And I find sex is sometimes the same. It's like, you're probably not going to regret it, right?
Yeah.
You're tired.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the kids are napping. You want a nap too, or your cycles are different. Someone wants it in the morning. Someone wants it in the evening. Just make a commitment. And when you're halfway interested, just go for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's bad advice,
Yes.
but
No, I think it's,
you don't have to be fully into it to get
sure.
it started. Once it's started, it'll take care of itself.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have any advice on how to stop feeling so exhausted or stretched thin?
Yes. It comes back to those values,
Mm-hmm.
right? And releasing the values and the shoulds that are no longer serving you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a good chance if you're tired and exhausted, you literally are doing too much.
Yeah.
And it's worth investigating why you're doing too much and what can you let go of.
Yeah. Which is often super hard, I think.
Super hard. Super hard. We want to
Totally.
do it all.
Yes,
We
totally.
do.
And we do, and then we also don't. We're I just wish I could just chill and whatever. But then we're and here we go to soccer practice, and then to hockey practice, and then right, and then to violin lessons, and it's this isn't maybe. Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. Of it maybe is not in line with your values, which is why it's feeling so taxing.
Right. If it's aligned with your values, you might be pumped to take your kid to violin lesson. You're like, this is so great. But if it's you want to say spaciousness is your value,
Mm-hmm.
but you're in back-to-back chaperoning on the
Yeah.
weekend,
Sure.
that is a disconnect. And
Sure.
sometimes values can conflict, and that's okay. You might have, academic rigor as a value, so you have extra tutoring.
Mm-hmm.
But when I work with folks, it's how can we balance those out so that they're supporting each other?
Yes.
Getting someone else to do the drop off, or the extracurricular is actually a break for you and you go on a walk while they're at soccer practice, and that actually feels good.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
re-anchoring to the values is the number one step.
Okay. So if we're feeling out of line with our partner, how do we get back? Like, what are ways that we can get back into that like teamwork mentality?
Yeah, in addition to reaching out to me, I'm happy to help with that. I think teamwork, I played soccer my whole life. Teamwork is about building something. And so there's three things that you're building. You're building your shared vision, you're
Mhm.
building your home systems, and you're building your community. And so I say build these things. And a first step might just be inviting someone over to your house for dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. To put those things in place. I do think that also, again, our kids are watching us, right? And so for them to see how important community is, that's a very protective factor, right? Just in life is to have people who care about us and that we know and that we also care about them. And so our kids seeing that, I think is really important.
Yeah, you'll see what happens when you know what your values are, live aligned with your values. It will feel like a weight has been lifted and that you can breathe more deeply again,
Mhm.
because you've built the life that you want.
Yeah. Okay, so as we're ending, if you could give one piece of advice or what you've already said that you want to reiterate to parents that feel stuck,
Hmm.
what would you want them to hear?
Hmm. One, it's not your fault. Modern family life, the math just doesn't add up.
Yes.
And so first, I just want you to feel the relief of knowing that. And next, coupledom is hard. Conflict is normal.
Mm.
Parenting is hard. Again, you're not doing it wrong. And that there is another way possible, but we just have to design it.
Yeah. I love this. Thank you so much, Sami, for coming on today and sharing your thoughts and feelings. It's been so great.
I loved meeting with you. Thanks, Bryce.
Thanks again, Sami. That was such a great conversation. I hope that you're leaving with things that you can implement in your home to think about values and about self-compassion and compassion for your partner and ways that you guys can reconnect and get back on the same page. With that, I will say thank you for your time today. Please share this episode with other couples that you think could benefit. And also like and subscribe to our show. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and keep the emails coming with future topic suggestions to accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Have a wonderful day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.